MarTechTalk, the live webinar with no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever your time zone. Welcome. This is MarTech Talk, and I'm your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. Today, we are here to talk about the MarTech transformation in financial services and the focus on improving the customer journey. This is an important topic because the integration of marketing technology within financial services marks a pivotal shift in how institutions engage with customers and optimize their experiences. Look, customers have they are much more discerning today, and as a result, financial institutions must adapt to meet their needs through tailored technology-driven solutions. And MarTech tools empower financial institutions to understand customer preferences and behavior, help anticipate their needs, and then deliver personalized experiences across various touchpoints. These tools not only enhance customer satisfaction, but also foster long-term loyalty and customer engagement in a competitive market. So we'll talk about that today. We'll explore where in your current customer journey may you be failing and falling short in explaining product complexities and intricacies. We'll understand these gaps and how crucial they are for building trust and transparency with your customers. Then we'll explore the use of video and learn how to leverage video effectively at key customer touchpoints to enhance engagement and provide clear, impactful messaging. And then, what other tools besides video should we consider, and at what points during the customer journey? It should be a great discussion today, and in the end, I hope that you'll discover how MarTech can help revolutionize your approach to customer engagement. But before I introduce our guests, I'd like to say that we'd like to welcome you aboard as well. Welcome everyone joining us live on LinkedIn, and of course everyone watching on Zoom. Join us on Zoom for the full experience. And I want to say that we want to hear from you too. We'd like to encourage everyone attending today to participate. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. And if you have a question along the way for one of our guests, please enter that into the chat feature. That's where I'll be looking. And I will attempt to get some of your questions and comments into the flow of the show today. And we'll have a few minutes also at the end for your questions. All right, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get to our great guests today, starting with Lawrence Clayton Trotman. Lawrence is a Senior Customer Success Director at Bright Cove. Lawrence, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from?
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to be here. I'm calling in from Southeast London, where the weather is as fantastic as it usually is.
Very good. Well, all right. It's great to have you with us, Lawrence. Thank you so much. Excuse me. Also joining us today is Yemi Ulusion, Program Director and Business Transformation Strategist at the Change Hive. Yemi, welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from today?
Hi, Kevin. Good to be here. My name is Yem. I'm calling in from London, West London, Hammersmith.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you, Yemi. It's great to have you aboard with us as well, also from London. And finally, Elias Chaltapasidis. Elias is Growth Marketing Director at Hyperjar and Hyperlayer. Welcome aboard, Elias. Welcome aboard. Where are you calling in from today?
Hi, Kevin. I'm also calling in from London, so it's an all London panel today.
It's a
Apart from
London
you, I
full
guess.
sweep today. All right, very good. Well, it is fantastic to have you all on the panel today. I'm looking forward to our discussion. Now, to get us started, I'd like to draw our attention to an article published recently by International Banker. We'll be putting that up here in the chat feature, called "The Customer Experience is an Inescapable Priority for Global Banking." The article discusses the increasing importance of customer experience in global banking. It highlights that financial institutions must prioritize customer experience in order to remain competitive, given the rising expectations of customers for personalized, seamless, and efficient services. Some of the key trends that the article talks about is the need for a customer focus, prioritizing enhancing customer experiences to meet the expectations of clients. To do that through technology integration with advanced technologies like AI and data analytics for understanding customer needs better and improving service delivery. And ultimately adapting to consumer behavior, adjusting strategies to align with changing customer behaviors, especially among younger generations who value the convenience and efficiency of digital interactions. Look, overall, the article stresses that enhancing customer experience is essential for driving customer loyalty and long-term success in the global banking sector. So, folks, I'd like to get your thoughts on the article, starting with you, Lawrence. What are your feelings about the article? Does it miss anything important that we should also consider?
I think one of the most important stats in that article, because there are quite a few, and the one that stuck out to me most was that poor customer experience is causing financial services organizations to lose a whopping 20% of their customers, which seems almost unbelievable. But at the same time, I think it really shows what's happening in the industry right now. We've got challenger banks that have managed to gain a lot of market share. And the reason that they've been able to do that is because they have a typically superior customer service. They haven't got the decades and sometimes the centuries of experience as the legacy banks with all of the financial products that they may have. But where they really excel is that customer experience and really breaking down complex financial topics and products into something that's very digestible, particularly for today's generation.
So you're mentioning that banks can be losing customers at 20% of customers. That's a big chunk. So where are they going to more modern digital first providers?
Yeah, so the article's also talking about how data is really king. So I think something that more modern banks do. So I'm talking about, in the UK, Monzo, Revolut, banks like that. What they're doing is the superior customer experience, but really getting the data back from their customers and personalizing the service back to them. Obviously, there are certain challenges with this sort of approach, which I'm sure we'll talk about more today. But obviously, in financial services, you have regulatory concerns. But there are ways to achieve a kind of personalized service that is meeting the customer where they want to talk about their banking in a way that is fully compliant.
Now, Yemi, what are your thoughts on the article? It's perhaps ironic that banking is perhaps the most data intensive sector in business today, and yet it is the data perhaps that is the key to expanding and improving customer experience. What are your thoughts on the article?
Yeah, no, great point, Kevin. I agree with Lawrence. I think it was a great article. It was quite comprehensive. The stats were quite alarming. But I also like the suggestions of things that could be done to improve it. So the focus was getting banks to reconsider the customer centricity. So really understanding the customer journey and mapping that out clearly was a key takeaway point from the article. The other point was about collecting data. Because to your point, there's a lot of data in financial services, but sometimes the data is very convoluted because these banks have been around for centuries. So they were pre-computer, pre-digitization. And so there's work to be done to digitize that. And then also because there are multiple channels and touch points for customers as well. The advantage is that most of this neobanks have is they're digital natives. So they don't have branches, they don't have like all the other channels that customers are exploring. So there's work to be done to unify those channels so you can have a holistic, comprehensive view of the customer. And the article does offer that as a second point that banks may want to consider. And there was also a third thing as well around then so segmenting and so mapping it out and segmenting is the key thing. But I think where the article had gaps was around explaining, I suppose, why the challenges are there for banks is there's a lot of excitement around new technology, which is great and cool, but we also have the regulators to manage as well. So all of this transformation and digitization has to be done with a balance of making sure we're compliant because nobody wants a bank. Everybody wants a bank that is customer friendly, but not so friendly that we then lose our data or our data are now on public platforms accidentally. So
Hmm.
it's that counterbalance. And then also I feel where the article was missing was also talking about like data and trust. So there's a lot of beauty that these tools can do to give us like personalized information. But if we're not careful and if we don't collect the right data, we can start to institutionalize biases as well in the data collection, right? So I wish the article talked a bit more about that, offered suggestions on how banks could in the bid to collect data and create personalized experiences, but could also do experiences that are not so personalized that they then include any kind of biases or over niche people down into like buckets that are not ideal. But great article, I agree.
All right. And Alicia, what are your thoughts on the article, and what should financial services organizations especially in Europe, consider compared to the rest of the world?
So I agree, first of all, with Yemi, and also agree with Lawrence that basically it's a really good article. It definitely kind of really explains, why there's this been shift to the neobanks or to other fintechs. I'm actually working in one of those fintechs. So Hyperjar also provides banking services as an EMI, so electronic money institution. To counteract some of what Yemi has said, for example, about building the trust and with your money, for example, we found that we didn't want to become a bank, for example, here at Hyperjar. We actually decided that we're better off just being a secondary account to people. Quite a lot of the likes of Monzo and Revolut and the Wise and so on, they have actually gone similar direction. Some of them do have a full banking license, but some of them they have specialized so much into just one thing. For example, here at Hyperjar, we specialized at being, we call ourselves like the best spending app. So basically, we don't want people to have all their money there, but only what they're planning to spend on their shops and retail, and we're pairing that with really nice, discounts and cashback offers and so on. So we take away some of that risk. Some others, like Wise, they focus so much on making, the best currency exchange and transferring money from one place to another. So from one side, there's like some fintechs like us or like other people that basically they just focus so much on trying to make the best possible experience or becoming like the let's say the most affordable on a specific thing, or the offering the best product on a money transfer, for example, or on investment, or like the likes of Revolut, where they decide to be the financial super app. So they have everything. So from money transfer to investment to savings to everything else, trying to maybe make it like big part of your life into basically everything. So I think there's different flavors into that. And I would say that the banks have been really slow. They're really like the traditional banks. And as Yemi said, they've been like institution for hundreds of years. They've been really slow into adapting into that. Because if you see like the bank apps, the main thing they're doing is transferring money from one place to another. And that's about it, right? They don't do much more. On all the other fintechs, because we need to survive, we're kind of trying to innovate, and the bank's now playing catch up. That's my view on this one. And obviously, there's all these caveats about that Yemi mentioned, but this is like, I think it's kind of creating a really nice, innovative environment. And I would say in Europe, we are a little bit ahead, I would say, because I worked also with some of American fintechs, and I think they're now starting kind of to break ground into kind of taking big market share from the traditional banks. But in Europe, and especially the UK, but also in other like markets in Germany and so on, with N26 and a few other banks, and Revolut definitely, an Estonian kind of based bank initially, and obviously now licensed also in the UK. They're breaking kind of ground very, very fast. In the US, I think now is the time that they're growing, and they're obviously facing all this regulatory, obviously, obstacles as well.
All right. Well, the article is from International Banker. It's called "The Customer Experience is an Escapable Priority for Global Banking." There is a link in the chat feature. I'd like to invite everyone attending today, go ahead and take a look at that article. Let us know what you think. What are your thoughts on the article, and what should we consider in addition to what the article has to tell us? We'd like to hear from you too as well. All right. Very good. Well, folks, I'd like to move us on now to the body of our discussion today. Starting with our first discussion point, and that is where your current customer journey is failing to explain product complexities and intricacies. First of all, Lawrence, perhaps you can get us grounded a little bit. When we talk about a customer journey here, what do we exactly mean by that? And where are those points of failure in product descriptions and complexities, and what should we do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to focus on the context here. So we're not marketing a physical product like an iPad, and we're not marketing, dare I say it, a really fun service like a travel company is marketing holidays and aspirational things that people are really looking forward to. Marketing's role in financial services is really to demystify those kind of complex concepts so that customers can make an informed purchase decision. Now, that could be anything from looking at different mortgage providers, looking at different savings accounts, and so on. These are serious topics. So customers are really looking for information, particularly if they're just beginning their sort of financial journeys. With that in mind, I think something that can really kind of be a problem in the customer journey is things being inconsistent and not personalized. What do I mean by that? If you're seeing an ad on TV for a particular mortgage provider, you head to their website. Typically, you're going to Google it on your phone, and maybe then you register. There needs to be consistency afterwards. So there needs to be post sales. There needs to be information on, okay, now I've got an account. What do I do now? How do I do the next step? So that inconsistency in the approach can really affect loyalty with customers, particularly in an environment where it's so easy to change bank accounts and change financial products these days. I'd say as well, it needs to be omni-channel. So you can't just have, in the old days, you would go to your bank branch and you'd sit down, maybe have a cup of tea with your bank manager on a leather chair. People are busy these days. They want to do stuff on their phone. But maybe after that, they want to go over to their computer to see something on a bigger screen to compare different savings rates, for example. So the marketing architecture needs to keep up with the customer as they go to different platforms to consume their information. And I'd say finally as well, financial services organizations really need to keep up with the competition. As we were just discussing in relation to the article, there's so much competition these days. The legacy banks are having to keep up with updating their apps to mirror the kind of experience that some of the neobanks are having. So, you know, in Monzo, you can create a custom savings pot and you can call it, you know, rainy day fund, for example. Typically with, a legacy bank, you can't do that kind of thing. These little tiny pieces of personalization in the customer journey are what makes customers loyal to these new approaches, and is part and parcel of the experience when it comes to the different financial services products that are available today.
That's a good example, Lawrence. A simple thing like that can make a big difference in terms of customer experience and customer expectations of the organizations that they work with. Is it a lack of technology or something that's a barrier in the way of doing those types of things, or is it just a lack of focus and a strategic focus?
I think there are the main challenges in this sort of area is the regulatory environment, but it's also the technical hurdle, so that digital transformation. So this is more of a problem for the legacy banks. As Yemi mentioned earlier, they've got, in some cases, more antiquated systems, or even internally, it could be just an internal process that is making transformation a bit sluggish. Whereas the challenger banks have grown up in an environment where they're not held back by legacy systems and processes, and their whole business model, along with the investment that they're seeking, is around a superior customer service experience. So they're moving quickly with customer demand to improve that experience in a way that is obviously still compliant. So there are clearly ways of doing things. It's just a little bit more difficult for legacy banks because they've got to deal with the systems they've already got and moving to a new system. And often as well, obviously, they are a larger scale. So they've got to make sure that whatever transformation they're undergoing, is still compliant, and there aren't going to be any hiccups along that journey.
Now, Elias, Lawrence mentioned regulatory requirements, and let's talk a little bit about that, especially with respect to Europe. How do regulatory requirements impact the way that we should communicate complex financial products to customers? And do you find that this creates an additional barrier to understanding?
So I think the regulatory kind of environment in Europe, I think, is one of the most robust, I would say. And equally, I would say, on the other hand side, that it actually moves pretty quickly. So we can see that one of the first countries that actually allowed cryptocurrency kind of investment and cryptocurrency regulation was actually in the UK and in Europe, when America followed suit but much later. So I would say that from one side, there's very robust regulation, which I think is a good thing for the consumers, a good thing for the businesses, that rely on these, that basically know that, whatever comes they receive from their bank or from their, electronic money institution, it's something they can trust. But equally, they do allow for basically innovation and new things and new products and so on. But yeah, that's obviously, I think, because it's such a complicated thing, we're talking about people's money or businesses' money, and also we're talking about how you communicate in a fair way, in a very transparent way. It does seem like as a burden sometimes, but in reality, if you look at it from a consumer or like if you are the business customer, you understand why these protections are there. And I would say that, they are, at least in Europe where I have more experience, they are rigid enough, but still allow for innovation. It's just that, you need also to have the right legal and compliance team in place so that they can interpret the rules, but also, if you, as a marketeer, focus on actually interpreting these rules for the best of the customer, then I think you find like the real sweet spot.
It's almost a matter of perception in a way. Should financial organizations do a better job at communicating their efforts to be transparent and yet fun and easy to work with?
Yeah, I think that's exactly true. Is and the example of Monzo, for example, was mentioned before, or Starling, or other neobanks, or like in electronic money institutions. We are all focusing on trying to make things more fun, more digestible, using a lot more plain language than legal language that a lot of the more traditional banks have used in the past. And I think that makes it so much easier. I think that's how also in the US, like with platforms like Robinhood and a few other similar investment platforms, that's how they managed to get also a new customer base.
Right.
They try to appeal to people with plain language and explaining the product for what it is, rather than overpromise or rather than make it so complicated where you just need an advisor to do it. I think sometimes, the product itself is to cut the advisor, for example, or to try to get people, more day-to-day people to try something new that they've not ever done before, or to, to open an ISA account, or to understand and compare like interest rates, things that maybe a few years ago they would be impossible for people to do without a financial advisor.
And Yemi, what tools or methods have you found most effective in helping me communicate intricate product details to customers? What are the tools that you can recommend that might help improve that customer journey?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I agree with everything that has been said. So Lawrence and Elias really hit good points. Just I think for me, one of the key challenges I think with traditional banks versus like neobanks is the segmentation problem keeps coming up over and over again because I feel like with most neobanks, they have a very niche. They're very clear on who the customer avatar is. Like there's a subset of demographic they're trying to target and focus on. But most traditional banks are a lot more broad. So if you think of things like, for example, with Monzo, they trended a lot massively last year because they had the year in view, where they essentially took all your spending habits. This was the year you were the so they looked at all your spending patterns and gave you a character. So the main character of the year, so you were the traveler, or you spent all your money on boots, and it just created such a buzz. Essentially, they took something that Spotify, so a different industry, was doing. So Spotify has your year wrapped, where it shows you like the kind of music you listened to, and they took that as the basis for then summarizing how customers have spent their year on a spending basis, and that was really good, I think, for the brand. It got people talking a lot about it. Now, most traditional banks would struggle with something like that because, again, the segmentation isn't clear, right? They're trying to cater to everybody across the various age demographic. I don't think my grandma would be interested to know that she was the traveler of the century from her bank. It's like, why do I need to know
Right.
this? And also the data is not in one place, like because you can have the same transaction in branch, the same transaction on the phone, and it's not only one clean database to run the analysis off the back of. So those things I think makes it hard for the bank to market in a way because the avatar is not clear and the segmentation is not clear in marketing makes it difficult because they're trying to cater to everybody. The language is too, some degree, too vanilla. So you talk to everybody and talk to nobody. Some of the ways to your question about how can this be improved has been video. So we've seen a lot of people incorporating videos to simplify. So, for example, with Nationwide, they've incorporated videos to simplify or to explain the home buying process. to guide people through this is how home buying works. Because for a first time buyer, it can be quite overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, I thought I just had the money, I just paid and I got the house. Like, what's all these things I have to do? I thought saving the money was the hardest part, and then they realized, oh, there's so much more to do. So the video helps to carry them along on the journey has been one. Another thing that we're seeing more and more of, I wish it was happening even more, was chatbots. So when they were first introduced, I think they were done badly. So when you got sent to a chatbot, it was like, oh my God, what the heck? I don't want to talk to a chatbot. But actually now I find it to be better to talk to a chatbot because usually the chatbot has a lot more access to a lot more data. So it can see a lot, it can see your patterns and tell you and give you a lot more personalized advice than you will get by just picking up the phone and talking to
Yeah.
a human on the phone that's just looking at a couple of transactions. But if the chatbot is done correctly, it can analyze a whole lot of data and give you patterns, and then you can then take that information as the basis to talk to somebody. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing. So it's videos and chatbots have been the way. But I think the underlying premise of this stuff for it to work is the segmentation piece that needs to be
Yeah.
done, and that's been the challenge.
Well, I want to talk about video here in a minute and certainly chatbots as well. And I have a question about that. But before we move on, Lawrence, Yemi brings up an important topic about segmentation. Are there tools or approaches quickly that you can recommend to help organizations do a better job with segmentation of their messaging and delivery?
Yeah, absolutely. So completely agree with what Yemi was saying. I think segmentation is really important, but you need to have that first party data to be able to segment your audience and to use a financial term, know your customer. So according to McKinsey, the share of consumers actively using mobile for their banking needs between 2020 and 2023 was 57%. So that's a really large market share of people who are primarily using mobile to do their day-to-day transactions and so on. And I'm sure that figure is going to climb. But how do you take that information from the interactions that someone has with their bank through their phone and transfer that into something meaningful? Video is a really fantastic way of doing that. We've already talked about how different banking products and concepts for example, a home buying guide, as Yemi mentioned, are complicated, and you can't explain that to someone in a tweet or in a short Facebook post with an image, for example. Video is a really great way of explaining these complicated topics.
Wow.
And if you take that approach of saying that data is king, and you want to be able to segment your audience to do that better sort of targeting, then video is a fantastic way of saying, okay, well, this person has watched 3 videos to do with different mortgage products. Therefore, this should improve their lead score. And we can follow up, for example, by email to say, hey, we have a new mortgage rate out today. This might be of interest to you. Similarly, if a banking organization's infrastructure is really omni-channel, then that same information that they've watched some videos to do with mortgages, for example, can be on the system, so that if someone's grandparent does go into the branch and they're just paying a bill or something, it can even show up on the screen to say, oh, this person has watched some videos to do with mortgages. You might want to ask them about that to see if they want to speak to a bank manager. So yes, there's a mobile first approach these days, but I think that if organizations are thinking carefully about it, you can actually use that data in a really clever way, share that with the rest of your own organization, your own first party data, and use that in a really effective way to steer conversations and be helpful to customers.
All right, well, let's move on to the topic of video, because I'm curious about how we effectively use video in global banking. Elias, can you share some examples of video content that you've seen and used at various stages in the customer journey, and how these videos have influenced customer engagement?
Yeah, definitely. So video, as has been mentioned before by Yemi and Lawrence, is actually a great medium to be able to explain complicated things. For us, it has helped us also to help customers understand how the app works and how to onboard, for example, how to do their first deposits, how to transfer money, how to set up contacts, for example, so that they can send payments to other people. We also have some more complicated features where you need to activate a specific cashback offer. So we created videos so that we explain to people. It's so much. It is as almost like someone showing you, like a friend showing you how it works. So, and we tried different styles of video. We tried videos where they look more like a robot has made them. We made videos that is, we have like some people from customer service actually talking in a more plain language, and I would say these work better for us. But we tried all types of videos just to try to find, what works best for specific interactions. But yeah, I would say it has helped us also from customer service point of view, like reducing the amount of requests coming to us. We also have a chatbot, as Yemi mentioned. Our chatbot actually has got an AI feature to decide what's the best video to share to people based on better success. And success, obviously, because we don't have like the pockets of a big bank. Is success means that reducing actually what goes to the customer service people and what can be self-serve. I would say innovation also in fintechs in general comes because we have to make do with a lot less resources than the bigger banks, but in reality that turns us to actually make a lot more automation, a lot more data-driven decisions. And yeah, definitely video has been in connection with, obviously, as Yemi mentioned, that like things like live chat can have like a lot more information than just a manual CS agent, customer service agent. We just need to go through all your transactions to find something, or they will need to open your profile. If you go to, for example, to our chatbot and you need your card renewed, the chatbot would know that because you are in the app already. So it will automatically tell you, click here if you just want your card renewed. So it makes things a lot faster than if you had actually to wait 10 minutes to talk to a person, and then they will need to open your account and wait more and more and more.
And Yemi, at what key touch points in a customer journey benefit most from incorporating video content, and why? And what are some of those benefits?
Yeah, I think the entire value chain benefits from it. Can you see me okay? I'm having a whole lot of okay, I'm back now.
Yeah,
Cool, you
there
can
you
see me.
are.
Yeah, I think the entire thing benefits from it. So from all the way from like brand awareness to the lead nurturing to customer conversion and then retention, the whole spectrum does because at different points in the journey, there are different types of videos and depth you want to go to with the customer because now they've showed obvious interest. I think the good thing about using video, I think to what Elias was mentioning, is you can start to A/B test things. You can say, okay, for this specific demographic of customer, this type of video tends to work. This kind of language tends to work. That language doesn't work. So these are the kind of dynamic things you could do with video that you can't do with traditional kind of onboarding, right? Because if you in the traditional onboarding, you get a team of people, you train them up on the language, and they all say the same thing to every single customer, regardless. But with video, you can have that dynamism. And then also, I think more importantly, you can start to optimize the video because you can track and see where you start to lose interest. Because some people take it really hardcore and actually monitor eyes and see like how engaged are the customers all through. So what part of the video do you start to lose customers? What part needs to be optimized? So the point is you can keep getting feedback on actual live data of how the customers interact with the video and keep optimizing the video until you get to a place where you know exactly what type of video and what needs to be said in each video to keep the customer and predict your sales and your retention. So,
All right. Now, Lawrence, look, I come from the school, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? How do I measure the effectiveness of videos at these touch points, and what metrics should I prioritize to assess the impact of the video content on customer experience?
Yeah, of course. So I think engagement is really the key here. So if you're looking at Google Analytics, you're going to get an idea of how many people viewed a particular page. But if that page has videos on it, you don't know if those videos were watched, if they were, for how long, and were any segments rewound because someone found a particular portion particularly interesting.
Right.
So at Brightco, for example, with our analytics, you can tell all of that information. You can actually get an engagement score from the video, and that can all be sent to your marketing automation platform. So it's consolidated where that information is most useful. So I'd say that's the most useful kind of analytics you can hope for on a video. We're also looking at, we recently announced our AI suite, which has a number of different features in it, including metadata. a metadata optimizer, which basically can really help large global organizations where they have audiences in lots of different countries, territories, and languages. You can translate your content so you can amplify your message further. And this can be super useful for different types of content. Yemi was talking about it being a video being useful throughout the customer journey. And we've been talking a lot about retail banking, but I think video is also really important across the financial services industry. So we work with customers, for example, that are like stock trading platforms, and they will have a full learning experience where you can take courses on introducing you to particular types of trades. And so on. And even that, again, going back to Yemi's point earlier about segmentation, it's really targeted to specific types of investor, for example. So there'll be an individual investor, but you've got different content for professional investors. All of them want different levels of information, and those engagement analytics are a really important benchmark for how useful is this content. And then what do you do with that information? Again, you can use that to target more content at them because you've seen that they've shown an interest. But even just on a video production level, you can see what content is resonating most. If you've had a conference, for example, some of the larger investment banks do quite large events where they have, sort of thought leadership type content. You can really understand from those analytics what portions of the video have people watched again and again, and you can then take that information and focus on that when you do your next year's conference, for example. So the analytics are super useful, both on an individual user level, understanding what behaviors this customer is exhibiting and what products they might be interested in, but it can be also useful at a much larger scale to understand, okay, what's our strategy for next year in terms of content we can produce.
Very good. We are here today with Lawrence Clayton Trotman, Yemi Lucian, and Elias Chaltaupasidis. I hope I'm correct with that, Elias. Thank you so much. If you have a question for our guest today, please pop them into the chat feature. We'll have a few minutes here in just a moment for some of your questions and comments. Before we run out of time, and our time is running short today, I want to ask you folks today, we've talked a lot about video, but what other tools besides video should we be considering in the mix of improving our customer journey in global banking? Elias, what are your thoughts?
I think if we consider that what Lawrence has mentioned before, like the majority of our consumers now, they do use their apps quite a lot on a day-to-day basis. I think in the UK, I think it's over 60% now that they're using on a day-to-day basis, like their banking app or their EMI banking app to basically be able to do the transactions or check the balances or transfer money over and so on. I think creates a lot of opportunities that the CRM opportunities are not just limited to emails anymore, but there's a lot of opportunity also within the app. So you can do like pop-up messages, in-app inbox messages. And the advantage of that is that you're not restricted by just whoever has given you marketing consent, because whatever you can actually show within the app is not considered the same as a distributed kind of marketing message. So you can basically then promote other parts of your app, or you can promote other products, or you can do summaries of how people have spent, as for example the likes of Starling and Revolut are doing, or the example for Monzo that Yemi gave, which basically had people showing, reviewing the year or reviewing. We did something similar also at Hyperjoy here. Or like push notifications, I would say another thing that is also like underutilized because it gives people to prompt a specific action. That could be, for example, to top up when their account is low, or what Starling Bank is doing, for example. To me the other day, I didn't have enough money to cover a specific direct debit. Instead of defaulting, they would just remind me that, tomorrow is direct debit that you need to basically cover the payment for. It is such like a user-friendly thing to do, instead of just charging a fee, and then telling us, another big bank would do. They just give you a chance to actually not fall into a trap of accidentally not having enough balance to cover a specific payment. And then that builds such a big trust to the consumer. So if the consumer knows that that the bank is, so the institution is helpful to you, then they would also trust also the marketing messages, because it kind of starts becoming, I would say, like a win-win situation. They trust, whatever, you're giving to them, because you're adding a value to their day-to-day kind of interactions with the app, I would say.
All right, very good. Those are some great tips. And now, Yemi, what other tools should we be considering besides video? You mentioned chatbots, and we have AI, data analytics. The confluence of all of this is a lot to consider. What are your suggestions?
Yeah, I think Elias also mentioned another one, so predictive analysis. I agree with Elias, by the way. I like that tool with Monzo. It essentially tells you if there's a direct debit coming up that is going to take you over, and it alerts you early. But I think the flip side of that, actually Monzo does as well quite well, is it tells if you've got a payment coming in, it'll tell you, oh, you're going to get a payment in 2 days. If you want to get paid earlier, click here and you can get your payment earlier, of course, for a fee. So these tools can also be used as a way to generate income for a bank as well. It's not just a way to please the customer, but they could, if used properly, they could also be used as a way to create additional revenue, which I found was quite good, because that's almost a buy now, pay later feature, because there's an early credit you're getting on your payment. So that's one. The other one is around gamification. I think Lawrence mentioned this about, like, gamifying your savings, so having different pots and having the customer set up a goal and gamifying their trajectory towards achieving that goal is another cool way to use these tools. One that I haven't seen used as well, and I don't know why. Best Direct and HSBC had this voice recognition tool where when you call the bank, your voice kind of unlocks a lot of stuff. For some reason, I don't think other banks have adopted it. I don't know why, but it just feels so obvious to me that you pick up the phone and you call, and just by your voice, it's like, oh yeah, hi, Emmy, good to see you again. Or just by your
Oop, did we lose Yemi? Looks like we may have lost Yemi mid-sentence. All
Those
right,
are the
well,
best part.
right.
there here,
She
because
was just bound to say something incredibly elusive. All right. Well, let's,
oh
Lawrence, then.
yeah.
We were talking about different tools. What we haven't talked about is the use of AI. What are your what are your thoughts on the inclusion of using AI tools, and where will that future take us?
I think AI is a really interesting topic right now. There's so many different companies coming out with different propositions, but I think in the context of financial services, we've obviously got to go back to that regulatory compliance. So organizations are quite limited in what they can do with that sort of technology for obvious reasons. But I would say it's more of a tool that can be used scale sort of in the back office, so to speak, rather than the customer actually noticing it's happening. As I mentioned previously, Brightcode, for example, we have translation technology. So if you've got a video that is in English, for example, and you want to be able to share that with your audience around Europe in lots of different languages, you can now very easily translate your captions and also your dubbing into different languages, which makes that very easy. And we also have introduced AI to help with video recommendations. So again, if a customer has watched 3 videos on a particular topic, you can follow up at the end of the video with an end screen that says, hey, how about this video next? This could be relevant to you. So utilizing this sort of AI at scale is, I think, super important. It is something that financial services can look at, still being compliant with the regulations they have to be conscious of.
All right. All right, folks, where has our time gone? We have reached the action item round of the program. I'm wondering if each of you could please provide us with one quick action item that our audience can use to take advantage of the ideas and advice today. Yemi, do you have an action item for us?
Sure. I think the key one is the segmentation piece, right? I don't think we can get away from that. It's as much as possible, spend some time really trying to segment your key customers and seeing how different or similar the customer journeys might be for each of those various segmentations. I think that is, for me, the first starting point. In terms of quick low-hanging fruits, I think simple things like birthday and anniversary offers, I think is something really simple that you don't need fancy technology for. So it's looking at your customer base right now. When it's their birthdays, can you send them a special offer or a special anniversary gift? I think that's a start or a step in the right direction towards personalization. So short term,
Mhm.
just anniversaries and birthdays. Mid to long term, first of all, segment the customers, and that's what we do at the Change Hive, helping with segmentation and mapping out customer journeys. Don't know if that
Very
helps.
good. That is Yemi Ulusian, Program Director and Business Transformation Strategist at the Change Hive. Thank you, Yemi, for being with us today. Elias, do you have an action item for us today?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I would advise anyone to do, and I will actually agree quite a lot with Yemi, you can start small and you can start with simple things to segment and delight your customers. I would say that, the thing that can make you stand, from your competitors is actually if you don't always try to reinvent the wheel. Nowadays, I think what fintechs are really good at is actually trying to partner with other organizations or with specific platforms that are able to do things that they cannot do. For example, if you don't have an in-house built, let's say CRM program or CLM kind of platform, it's much better, I would say, to start with actually to onboard a specific existing one that is already has those capabilities, and you only need to just implement, their API rather than try to build totally in-house. And then obviously, if you exceed, the capabilities from that, then you can build it in-house after you prove the value. But instead of
Mm.
creating like huge projects, I advise everyone to actually try to see and avoid, reinventing the wheel when they can just partner with another fintech, when they can partner with another, MarTech platform, and then they can actually, do whatever they want to try easily and quickly and be, go to market pretty quickly and validate that
Yeah.
hypothesis.
Very good. That is Elias Chaltalpasidis, Growth Marketing Director at Hyperjar and Hyperlayer. Elias, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you,
And
Kevin.
finally, Lawrence, Lawrence, do you have an action item for us today?
Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest thing you can do to really improve your customer journeys is to help your customers think about the friction points that they are experiencing during their journey. I think a lot in financial services, as Yemi mentioned earlier, it could be something like they're buying a house. What kind of content do you have to guide them on that journey that can take months? Um, and often video is a really good way of doing that, and it gives you, the organization, insights on the type of topics that they're interested in and the types of products that might be relevant to them. So it would be number one, create engaging content that is kind of being asked for by your customers. And you could start small as well by just having a video helping someone log into online banking. HSBC does this. And just by having that video on that sort of page, it's going to reduce the operational cost of having a call center because someone might call up and say, how do I log in? So thinking strategically about video placement throughout the customer journey, linking that with marketing automation, so you can get those insights to where they're needed and where you can act on them. That would be my number one
All right.
tip.
Fantastic. That is Lawrence Clayton Trotman, Senior Customer Success Director at Bright Cove. Lawrence, Yemi, Elysius, it's been great speaking with you today. Thank you for your points and your advice. What a great panel. I hope we get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us today, thank you too for being with us. Join us also for our sister shows here at Business Reporter, AI Talk and Digital Transformation Talk. You can find out more at business-reporter.co.uk. And if you'd like to find me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there. Check me out. I'm Kevin Crane, and you can check out my weekly audio podcast, Everyday MBA. But for now, that'll do it for this episode of MarTech Talk. And until next time, I'm Kevin Crane. Thanks for watching.